This next one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Bob, jacking it in San Diego. I was surprised to hear Brian mention the Metal Maniac on a recent drive-thru. I had the misfortune of knowing him briefly in the early 2000s while wrestling for AFA. We called him the Metal Mullet behind his back, and no one took him seriously. He acted as though his indie feud with Jimmy Snuka was up there with Don Morocco's. He beat me with a pedigree.
Metal Maniac and Jimmy Snuka.
He beat me with a pedigree in 2 minutes and bragged about winning this match in the locker room for months as though he really beat me. My question is, did Jim ever get stuck managing the Metal Mullet when he did shows for Dennis Carluzzo in the Northeast? And if so, did Jim ever have to deal with the Metal Mullet or any other lifer indie guys pretending they were equals and calling him brothers 46 times in the first meeting?
Brother. Will you tell me, you might have a better memory than me. Do you remember me ever managing the Metal Maniac on Dennis's shows?
Oh, no, I don't think Dennis would ever do that to you.
I don't think he did, but I mean, there could have been something like in his hometown or something that I may, so I'm not precluding the idea that I may have done it, but yeah, I mean, the guy, he was a nice enough guy, except he was a mark for the business and himself, and people used to, laugh about that because he would brag in the locker room about winning a match that he was supposed to win, and he did have the long-running program with Jimmy Snuka because
he drove Jimmy Snuka to the show.
I was about to say, they need to find somebody that would drive Snuka to the show, not hurt him, put him over, and not have any issue with it. So that was the deal. And, he was one of the guys that would go out and actually, we had guys do this in OVW. We had them do it in wrestling school. It's not unheard of. But for a guy that allegedly had reached the status that he had, it was a bit, but he would go out and sell tickets to get on shows. And or if you'd put him on a show, he would go out in some way or another, try to drum up a bunch of people to come see him. So he was dedicated in that extent, which is why he got booked in a lot of places, especially for Dennis. But
there was a famous story of him getting in line in full gimmick, including the makeup and his outfit, to get an autograph from Kerry Von Erich with the other fans.
I remember that. I remember that story. I was not there at the time, but I remember the story. But there was, that's the thing, Metal Maniac, and everybody go, giggle. But bless him, he wanted so badly to be somebody that he was not necessarily equipped or going to get the opportunity to be, but he acted like he was anyway.
Any other experiences with guys like that? I mean, when we talk about using the word brother, I mean, people use that in real life, but there are certain guys that use it in wrestling, and then there are guys that go overboard with it like they're trying to be something they're not. Did you have many encounters with wannabe wrestlers or guys who, you're like, why? Now that I asked the question, I realize how stupid it is. Of course you have.
Have you had any, in the last 45 years, Jim, have you had any encounters with people that wanted to be in wrestling business? God, I mean, anything from you can tell when a guy's too excited to use inside lingo, especially when he might not be using it all properly. That's a tip off right there. And there were, the plethora of independent promoters over the last 20 years that run, as I've said, their hometown on their birthday. I've gotten all kinds of calls. And I mean, it is wrestling terminology. Yeah, we want to bring you in. But it's like, a guy that works for the NASA parking lot calling Neil Armstrong and saying, hey, we want to bring you in. It just doesn't land the same when it's a guy has promoted 3 spot shows and he calls you, yeah, we want to bring you in. In where? Poughkeepsie? I've been there. Whatever the fuck. It's not like bringing you into Mid-South Wrestling or bringing you into the WWF or bringing you in for this company for a big, long run. We're going to bring you into fucking Bolivar, Tennessee for a spot show. And the promoters try to do the same thing. And remember, bless him, the Purple Bomber, Geno Moore, had to create that.
Don't bless him. Don't bless him. He doesn't deserve a blessing. Fuck
is
that.
He dead?
Oh, he's dead. Fuck that guy. And he's dead.
Bless and fuck him. But anyway, he had to invent a long-running blood feud with Terry Funk in Japan that he could brag about that never happened, but in the pre-internet days, nobody could actually pull up proof. You're full of shit right here, Gino.
He told me he wrestled against Giant Baba in a cage in Japan.
Of course he did.
In a cage!
Yes, and Baba never did cage matches. But see, there was no way to check back then, so he would... That fucking Ian Rotten... That stain on the industry. He used to, in the closing days of the Memphis territory, they wouldn't book him. Randy Hales wouldn't book him because he was goofy, outlaw-minded even then. But that's when he had gone to the first round of the outlaw shows in Japan in the mid-'90s when they started doing indie mud shows, garbage matches over there. And Ian Rotten would come and buy a ticket and sit in the bleachers at the Louisville Gardens with the fans and show them the scars on his arms and tell them that he wrestled in Japan where it was real, not like this fake shit, and that's why they won't let him in here to wrestle because he beat all these guys up for real. And finally, Randy, he had the ticket sellers and ushers with a picture looking out for Ian Rotten to kick him the fuck out of the building. Because even then he was trying to hurt the business any way he could at his own, to aggrandize himself. Fucking moron.
In like 96 or 97, I forget exactly, probably 96, I ran into, I think it may have been John Owen, but it was someone who had been a Fan Week alumni, and we were talking about the Louisville Massacre. The show in August of 95 where the fans turned on us, the Smoky Mountain fans, and we had to get a police escort.
Right.
So we're talking about it, and this guy's sitting there like, I was there, that didn't happen. I'm like, excuse me, it absolutely happened. There were an entire crew of people who witnessed it. The guy's like, nope.
Hildebrand laughed for days over it.
The guy who said it to me was Ian Rotten, and I had no idea.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was his introduction to me.
Yeah,
it didn't happen. What happened to you didn't happen. I was there.
He was carving himself up doing garbage matches in Japan, and I think this was right before Paul Lee brought him up there. Axel Rotten had a little bit of, he could work a little bit, right? But he tried. Brother,
he's the one. He left ECW and went to Memphis in 95. He actually tried to do what there was to be done in wrestling outside of ECW.
But then Paul brought Ian up because he'd slice himself up and do the stupid matches where they glued fucking broken glass to each other's fists and punched each other and everything. It was like hiring the fucking guy that bites the head off the live chicken to be on the freak show. But that's Ian's Rotten's thing was so much that he wanted people to think, and still, that's why he still does this day. He doesn't make any money. He's been a wrestling promoter in the Louisville area, run off into Indiana where there is no commission for over 20 years, and he still had outside jobs such as working the cash register at Taco Bell while he's a big-time wrestling promoter. He does it because he wants people to think that he's somebody in the wrestling business and always has. And you'd find guys like that. They'd sit there in the crowd having bought a ticket with the fans, telling the fans who didn't know any better at the time because there was no internet, oh, yeah, in Japan, I'm a big deal. See all my scars or whatever the fuck. You'd have people doing that. And you had to usually find them and run them off from your business because it made the business look like shit.